In the dressing room, the air was thick with the scent of expensive lily perfume and a near-solid stillness. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. The heavily embroidered wedding dress was layered upon layers, and the tiny diamonds embedded in the sweetheart neckline refracted a harsh, glaring light under the cold white glow. The makeup artist's hands trembled slightly. She didn't even dare to look me in the eye. Just 2 minutes ago, my fiancé, Gu, had sent a text message, brief and to the point. Ruo Ning, Yaya is threatening to jump from the rooftop. She has no one but me. Let's delay the wedding by an hour. Wait for me. I picked up my phone, my fingertips calmly gliding across the screen. An hour. Today's guests encompassed the entire political and business circles of Jiangcheng. The marriage alliance between the Gu and Shen families is the biggest business news of the year. Yet, for the sake of a first love who staged a suicide drama, he is about to abandon me alone. Under the scrutiny of thousands of eyes, leaving me to be publicly humiliated. Miss Shen, Mr. Gu over there. The makeup artist mustered the courage to speak, her voice as faint as a mosquito's hum. He won't be coming back. I cut her off, my voice surprisingly cold and sharp. I stood up, lifting the heavy hem of my dress as I walked to the window. Downstairs, the media's broadcast vehicles were already in position, with cameras of all sizes aimed at the entrance of the hall. Gu Huai probably thought I was that Shen ruining who would always stand in place waiting for him to turn back, the one who could endure any grievance for the sake of the bigger picture. After all, throughout this 5-year-long pursuit, I had always acted too much like the perfect, proper, and easily set-aside fiancé. Shen ruining. How can you still have the mind to space out here? The lounge door was pushed open with a heavy thud, as bridesmaid Su Man rushed in on towering high heels, her face unable to conceal a gloating expression. She is Gu Huai's cousin and has always looked down on me, the investment banker who climbed her way up through schemes. My brother has gone to accompany Yaya. He asked me to tell you not to be so selfish. Yaya was only triggered because you're getting married. Even if you have to endure a little grievance now, it's what you owe her. Su Man crossed her arms, her chin held high. As for this wedding, I don't think you should go through with it. It's just embarrassing. I turned around and looked at her coldly. Do I owe her? I chuckled softly, slowly walking towards Su Man. What are you trying to do? She took half a step back, startled by the chill in my eyes. Since Gu Huai thinks I'm selfish, I might as well be selfish to the end. I picked up the stainless steel scissors used for cutting tags from the table and, amid Su Man's gasp, suddenly stabbed them into the backup toast dress behind me with a tearing sound. The luxurious silk was ripped apart. Shen ruining, you're insane, Su Man screamed. Not done yet. I set down the scissors, turned to my stunned assistant, and said, go, take a screenshot of the text message Gu Huai just sent me and forward it to the PR department. Also, help me with one more thing. I leaned in and whispered a few words into the assistant's ear. The young girl's eyes widened abruptly, then she nodded heavily and turned to run out. At that moment, the door to the dressing room was pushed open again. Gu's mother entered, dressed in a dark red cheongsam that exuded elegance and grace, yet her face was stern and severe. Ruo Ning, I know about a Huai's situation, Mrs. Gu didn't even sit down, her tone carrying a condescending firmness. Men, it's a good thing to be soft-hearted occasionally. It shows they value sentiment. Later, when you go on stage, just say that a Huai is feeling unwell and the ceremony will be postponed. After he comforts Lin Yu and returns, you two can have a private toast later. The cooperation between the Shen and Gu families cannot be broken. You're a smart person. You should know how to handle this most considerately. Considerate. I savored these 2 words, a self-mocking smile curling at the corner of my mouth. Mrs. Gu, are you asking me to publicly admit that my husband ran away on our wedding day to accompany another woman, and that I should smile and cover for them? This is called having a big picture perspective. Mrs. Gu's face darkened. You come from the Shen family. Do you have no upbringing at all? If you don't do as I say, don't even think about stepping into the Gu family's door, then I'd rather not step through that door. I tore off the white veil from my head, my long hair cascading like a waterfall over my shoulders. I walked to the dressing mirror and personally wiped away the gentle milk tea color from my lips, replacing it with the bold, classic red lipstick I had kept hidden away, the color of a hunter. You, what did you say? How dare you defy me, Mrs. Gu trembled with rage. Mrs. Gu, from this moment on, I will invoke the partner withdrawal clause for all joint development projects between the Shun and Gu families. As for the wedding, I turned back, my gaze sharp as a blade. I will leave the Gu family with a wedding they will never forget. I shut the door, locking Mrs. Gu and Suman inside, ignoring their curses from behind. At the end of the corridor lies the target I had long since locked onto. The moment I confirmed Gu Huai had left, I had already filtered through the list of all the guests present today in my mind. I needed a partner stronger, more ruthless, and more powerful than the Gu family to pull off this desperate counterattack, and that person is currently sitting in VIP Lounge No. 1. Lu Yuchuan, the head of the Lu family, a man rumored to be as cold and aloof as snow, unapproachable yet holding sway over half of Jiangqing's financial lifeline. It is said he returned to the country to clean up the family's internal affairs, his methods so swift and decisive that they struck fear into the hearts of countless old money families. I pushed open that heavy mahogany door. The room was dimly lit, with only the glow of a cigar flickering between his fingers. The man sat on a leather sofa, his long legs crossed. Hearing the noise, he slightly raised his gaze. His eyes were deep, almost hollow, exuding an air of aloofness that kept others at a distance. Miss Shun, it seems. You've come to the wrong place. Lu Yuchuan's voice was low and magnetic, reminiscent of a well-aged cello, yet laced with icy shards. You're not mistaken, Mr. Lu. I locked the door behind me and walked straight up to him, holding my wedding dress. I could feel the overwhelming pressure emanating from him, the aura of someone who has long held a position of power. Under normal circumstances, I would have chosen a gentler approach to get close to him. But now, I only had 5 minutes. Gu Huai has run away from the wedding. I got straight to the point. My tone as calm as if I were reporting on a financial statement. Right now, there are 3,000 guests and 50 media outlets outside. If I walk out alone, the Shun family will become a laughingstock, and Shun Corporation's stock will hit the limit down at tomorrow's opening. But if the groom were to be replaced by you, Mr. Lu, the outcome would be completely different. Lu Yuchuan let out a light laugh. Though the smile didn't reach his eyes, he exhaled a puff of smoke, studying me through the haze. Miss Shun, do I look like the kind of person who enjoys cleaning up other people's messes? This isn't a mess, it's a deal. I leaned down, placing my hands on the armrests of his sofa, closing the distance between us. I could smell the cool cedar scent on him, mixed with a faint hint of tobacco. The Lu Group is currently competing for the port project in the southern city, and the biggest rival is the Lin family, who have Gu Huai's uncle backing them. If you take me away today, you won't just be taking a wife in name, you'll also be taking the crucial 20% equity held by the Shun family, and me, the person most familiar with the financial loopholes in the Gu Group. Lu Yuchuan's slender fingers tapped lightly on the table, the rhythm steady and unhurried, each tap echoing like a beat against my heart. Shun ruining, you're quite ambitious. He suddenly reached out, his thumb and forefinger gripping my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. His palm was cool, carrying a sense of absolute control. But what makes you think I need a woman who was abandoned at her own wedding to help me? Because I'm ruthless enough. I stared into his eyes without flinching. I can be ruthless with myself, and I can be ruthless with my enemies. Mr. Lu, you need a Lu wife by your side who is clear-headed, won't get emotional, and can charge into battle for you. And right now, all I want is to see the Gu family fall. Our eyes met, and it felt as if sparks were crackling in the air. He stared at me for a long time, so long that I thought he would call his bodyguards to throw me out. Suddenly, he let go of my hand and stood up. He was a head taller than me, and his shadow instantly enveloped me. Shirt buttons, he said out of the blue. What? I froze for a second. Help me fasten it. He lowered his gaze, pointing to his slightly loosened shirt collar. His tone remained cool, but with a hint of playfulness. Since you're going to be Mrs. Lu, you'll have to learn how to do these things. My heart was racing with joy, but I kept a straight face. I reached out and steadily buttoned that clasp, which symbolized submission and alliance. Just then, my phone in my pocket started vibrating violently. It's Gu Huai. I answered the call and put it on speakerphone. Ruining, listen to me. I've already sent my secretary to the venue to explain. Now, be a good girl and go wait in the lounge. Don't make a scene, and don't give any interviews. Lin Yu's condition is critical, and I can't leave. Be obedient, and I'll make it up to you with an even bigger diamond ring when I get back. Ji Huai's voice sounded weary and impatient, carrying a tone of condescending control. I turned to look at Lu Yuchuan. He raised an eyebrow, his gaze icy. Ji Huai, I spoke softly into the phone, my tone so gentle it was chilling. No need for compensation. That diamond ring, I just threw it down the drain. Are you out of your mind? Do you even know what day it is today? Ji Huai growled. I know very well. I glanced at Lu Yuchuan, who was elegantly adjusting his cufflinks. Today is Shenruaning's big day, but the groom has been changed. What do you mean, Shenruaning? How dare you? I hung up the phone directly and casually tossed it into the trash can. Mr. Lu, it's time. I extended my hand to him, graceful and poised. Lu Yuchuan looked at me, the corner of his lips curling into a faint smile. Instead of taking my hand, he wrapped his arm around my waist in a domineering manner, pulling me into his embrace. Let's go, Mrs. Lu, he whispered in my ear, his breath warm against my neck. Let's go reclaim your crown. Outside the door, accompanied by the loud sound of the door being pushed open, the wedding symphony had already begun at that moment. I knew that the old structure of Jiangcheng had completely collapsed the instant this door opened, and I, stepping on the dignity of the Jiyu family, would ascend to godhood once more when the heavy banquet hall doors were slowly pushed open by the attendants. The previously noisy chatter vanished instantly. As if a mute button had been pressed, I held onto Lu Yuchuan's arm, stepping to the beat of the wedding march as I walked step by step down the red carpet. The scattered diamonds on my skirt shimmered brilliantly under the spotlight. Dazzling to the eyes, I could feel countless intense gazes fixed on me, shifting from confusion to shock, and then to an almost frantic curiosity. Is that Lu Yuchuan? What's going on? Isn't the groom Ji Huai from the Jiyu family? Is Shenruaning crazy? She actually walked in holding the arm of the Lu family's god of death. Whispers of discussion surged like a tide, but I kept my gaze fixed straight ahead, my back ramrod straight. The man beside me walked with steady steps, his naturally cold and aloof aura acting like an invisible barrier, shutting out all malice and speculation. Lu Yuchuan tilted his head slightly and whispered in a voice only the two of us could hear. Miss Shen, your hand is trembling. It's excitement. Mr. Lu, I replied, curling the corner of my mouth and lowering my voice. Don't you think it feels wonderful to start over just when everyone thought I was about to take my final bow? A soft chuckle escaped his throat, and he said nothing more, only tightening his grip around my waist ever so slightly. Just as we were about to reach the edge of the main stage, an unexpected change occurred. Stop right there, Shenruaning, you shameless woman. Surrounded by several bodyguards, old Master Ji Yu, leaning on his cane, shakily rose from the VIP seats. His aged face was clouded with anger, and his murky eyes flickered with flames of rage. Behind him were Madame Ji Yu and Su Man, who had just chased out from backstage. Madame Ji Yu was clearly beside herself with fury. Pointing at me, she shrieked, Shenruaning, have you no shame? Ah Huai was only delayed for a moment due to work, and you actually brought some random man on stage. Are you trying to ruin our Jiyu family's reputation? Wild man. Lu Yuchuan stopped in his tracks, his body turning slightly as his deep, dark eyes swept coldly toward Gu's mother. The air seemed to freeze in that instant. After getting a clear look at Lu Yuchuan's face, Gu's mother looked like a hen whose neck had been wrung, her shriek cut off abruptly, her face turning from red to green, and finally to a deathly pale. Madame Ji Yu, who were you just calling a wild man? Lu Yuchuan's tone was calm, yet it carried a chilling sense of oppression. Lu, President Lu, old Master Ji Yu, after all, was a seasoned veteran and reacted the fastest. He shot a fierce glare at Mrs. Ji Yu, then forced a smile that was uglier than crying. President Lu, this is all a misunderstanding. The child is just having a little spat with Ah Huai, and we've made a fool of ourselves in front of you. Ruining. Come over quickly now. Don't waste President Lu's time. Old Master Gu's words were extremely cunning. He wanted to frame this as a lover's quarrel, while also giving Lu Yuchuan a way out. Hoping to preserve the Jiyu family's dignity, I pushed Lu Yuchuan's hand away and took a step forward on my own, standing on the steps and looking down at the Jiyu family. A lover's quarrel, I repeated softly, then turned to the media cameras below. My voice was clear and bright, ensuring that everyone could hear. Old Master Ji Yu, you may have misunderstood. Ji Hui didn't miss the wedding because of business. An hour ago, for the sake of his first love, Lin Yu, he voluntarily gave up on this wedding. The audience erupted in an uproar. You're lying. Su Man couldn't help but jump out. It was you who drove Yaya away. My brother was just trying to save her. Save her, I sneered, pulling out a tablet I had prepared earlier from my handbag and connecting it directly to the hall's massive LED screen. The screen flickered for a moment, then displayed a series of photos and a video. In the photo, Ji Hui is running down the hospital corridor, holding Lin Yu tenderly in his arms, while the video shows the transfer records from 6 months ago when Ji Hui secretly purchased an apartment for Lin Yu, along with surveillance screenshots of the two entering and exiting a hotel. The life he was saving was that of a third party who started interfering in our relationship 6 months ago. I pointed at the screen, my gaze as cold as ice. Old Mr. Ji, is this what the Ji family calls upbringing, allowing the heir to abandon his lawful fiancée on their wedding day to comfort a habitual homewrecker? Old Mr. Gu's face had turned ashen, his cane striking the ground heavily. Enough, this is a private matter of the Ji family, and it's not your place to speak so recklessly. Shen ruining. Don't forget, the Shen family still has 3 projects under the Ji name. If you step back now, I might still leave you a way out. This was a blatant threat. No need. I raised my head and looked at the reporters below, who were already frantically typing away. From this moment on, the Shen Group officially unilaterally terminates all business cooperation with the Ji family, due to Ji Huifang's breach of contract, which prevented the wedding from proceeding normally. The Shen Group reserves the right to pursue compensation for reputational damages and penalties from the Ji family. As for these 3 projects, I turned around and looked at Lu Yuchuan, a hint of provocative smile in my eyes. Mr. Lu, I wonder if the Lu Group has any interest in these projects. Lu Yuchuan walked slowly to my side and naturally took over the conversation. Whatever Mrs. Lu takes a liking to, the Lu Group will take on all of it. The term Mrs. Lu struck like a sudden thunderclap, instantly pushing the atmosphere at the scene to its peak. You, Mrs. Gu's vision went dark, and she nearly fainted. Old Mr. Ji trembled with rage, pointing at me. You actually dare, Shen ruining. You're leading the Shen family down a path of ruin. What kind of family is the Lu family? Do you think you can stand firm there? Whether I can stand firm or not is none of your concern, I said, looking at Mrs. Ji with a hint of sarcasm. As for you, Mrs. Ji, you just said I couldn't enter the Ji family. Now, I have to thank you for not marrying me. After all, compared to being a bullied daughter-in-law in the Ji family, I'd much rather be the powerful lady of the Lu family. With that, I ignored the expressions on the Ji family's faces and turned to the MC standing nearby. The MC had long been terrified, and the microphone in his hand was trembling. You may begin, I reminded her. Oh. The host wiped his sweat and stammered. The ceremony continues. Please exchange rings, bride and groom. The ring prepared by the Ji family had long been discarded by me. Yet, Lu Yuchuan seemed to have come prepared. He pulled out a deep blue velvet box from his suit pocket. The moment it opened, gasps erupted throughout the room. That is the heart of the Aurora, the blue diamond that was bought by a mysterious bidder for a 9-figure sum at last year's Sotheby's auction. Everyone was speculating about who the buyer was, but no one expected it to now be in Lu Yuchuan's hands. He took my hand, and the cold diamond ring slid onto my finger. Shen ruining. He lowered his head, his warm breath brushing past my ear with the demeanor of a predator. The act was well performed, but from now on, this is no longer just an act. I felt the heavy weight on my finger, yet my heart was clear and empty. This ring was not a symbol of love, but the scepter of my revenge. Just as Lu Yuchuan was about to kiss me, the banquet hall doors were flung open once again. Ji Hui rushed in, wearing a slightly disheveled suit and drenched in sweat, with Lin Yu, pale and fragile looking, trailing behind him. Shen ruining. Have you lost your mind? Ji Hui roared the moment he entered. I was only a little late, and you had to make such a big scene to humiliate me. Get this man out of here right now and apologize to me. The entire hall fell silent. Everyone looked at Ji Hui as if he were an idiot. Ji Hui hadn't yet sensed the strange atmosphere. He rushed straight to the front of the stage, only stopping when he saw the man standing beside me. Lu Yuchuan. Ji Hui froze, his voice instantly rising an octave. "What are you doing here, Mr. Gu? You've returned just in time." Standing on the high platform, I looked down at him with no trace of affection in my eyes, only deep disgust. "Let me introduce you, this is my lawful husband, Lu Yuchuan. As for you," I pointed toward the direction of the door, "due to your unexcused absence and moral misconduct, you have been fired by me. Now, you have not only lost your fiancé but also all support from the Shen family. Oh, by the way, Mr. Gu has already thoroughly embarrassed you just now. I suggest you check the real-time stock price of the Gu Corporation first, it might be more interesting than your suicide-attempting little first love." Lin Yu hid behind Gu Huai, her face pale, and spoke in a delicate, trembling voice. "Sister Ruining, don't blame a Huai, it was all my fault for accidentally falling, and he was just in a hurry to take me to the hospital." "Shut up." I shot her a cold glance. "Miss Lin, everyone here is smart. Don't disgust me with those cheap, melodramatic tricks from your dime store novels. If you can fall and end up on the top floor of the hospital attempting suicide, then your sense of balance must be truly extraordinary." "Shen Ruining, watch your language." Gu Huai, flushed with anger, reached out to pull me off the stage, but before his hand could even touch the hem of my skirt, it was firmly seized by one of Lu Yuchuan's bodyguards. Lu Yuchuan stepped forward, shielding me behind him, with one hand in his pocket. His gaze was as cold as if he were looking at an insect. "Young Master Gu, have you considered the consequences of laying a hand on my woman?" Gu Huai was forced back 3 steps by that imposing aura. Seeing me standing side by side with Lu Yuchuan, he finally realized the gravity of the situation. "Ruo Ning, you're doing this to get back at me, aren't you?" Gu Huai's voice began to tremble, and a hint of pleading appeared in his eyes as he looked at me. "Stop messing around, come back with me. I promise I won't see Lin Yu anymore." "Okay, too late." I looked at him and said, word by word, "Gu Huai, from the moment you stepped out of this hall, you became nothing more than trash that must be cleared away in my eyes. The person I am now is beyond your reach." I turned around and flashed a bright smile at Lu Yuchuan. "Mr. Lu, shall we go? The air here is rather stifling." Lu Yuchuan gave a slight nod, then wrapped his arm around my shoulder, under the watchful eyes of everyone. Amidst the desperate pleas of the Gu family as they knelt and begged for mercy, he led me out of the hall with long, confident strides. As the door swung open, the sunlight outside was blindingly bright. I took a deep breath. It was the scent of freedom and power, taking care of the family. This is just the beginning. The Lu family's motorcade moved silently through the night, like a giant beast cruising in the deep sea. I sat in the back seat of Lu Yuchuan's custom-made Rolls-Royce, the wedding venue behind me gradually becoming a distant, bustling speck of light. Inside the car, it was extremely quiet, with only the faint glow from the dashboard. The intense, precarious excitement I had felt on stage earlier was slowly fading, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. "Miss Shen, if you change your mind, it's not too late to jump out of the car now." Lu Yuchuan's deep voice echoed in the confined space. He was looking down, flipping through a document, the sound of his fingertips brushing against the paper cutting through the silence with a chilling sharpness. He didn't even glance at me, yet he had precisely caught that fleeting moment of tension in me. "Mr. Lu, you must be joking." I adjusted my posture, letting the heavy wedding dress drape naturally over the leather seat. Compared to returning to that foul-smelling Gu family, I much prefer the steadiness of this car. A wise choice. Lu Yuchuan closed the file and finally looked up, those deep, dark eyes locked onto my face in the dim light. Carrying the scrutiny of a judge, his gaze lingered on the large blue diamond between my fingers, his tone flat. "The contract will be delivered to your room shortly. For this year, you will be my wife in name, and you will receive every privilege befitting the mistress of the Lu family. But one thing, Shen Ruining, don't play with fire under my watch. I have one condition too." I met his gaze without backing down. "Within this year, I want the Gu family completely gone from Jiangcheng. You want the port in the south of the city, and I want Gu Huai utterly defeated." The corner of his mouth lifted almost imperceptibly, as if pleased by a shared ambition. "Deal." The car drove into the Lu family's top-tier mansion halfway up the mountainside. This place doesn't feel like a home, it's more like a heavily guarded fortress. The old butler, flanked by 2 rows of servants, was already waiting at the entrance. They bowed their heads in unison, their voices carrying a trained restraint. "Welcome, sir. Welcome, madam." That single word, madam, officially severed my past. I was settled into the presidential suite on the third floor of the main building, which was Lu Yuchuan's private domain. As soon as I stepped into the room, the minimalist yet oppressive grey-toned decor hit me cold and detached. Much like the man himself, I was just about to ask the servants to help me remove this cumbersome wedding dress when a sharp screech of brakes echoed from downstairs, followed by Ji Yuhuai's hysterical roar, "Shen ruining! Come out here, Lu Yuchuan, you despicable opportunist, give my fiancé back to me." I paused mid-motion and walked out onto the balcony to look down. Ji Huai must have lost his mind. Not only had he come himself, but he'd also brought Lin Yu, who stood there with tear-streaked cheeks, looking fragile and vulnerable. He was shoving the security guards outside the wrought iron gate, completely disregarding his image. His once meticulously tailored suit was crumpled beyond recognition, and the usual air of a refined gentleman had vanished entirely. "Is this the true love you were talking about?" Lu Yuchuan appeared behind me at some point. Having changed into a dark grey silk robe, the collar was slightly open, revealing a glimpse of his pale collarbone. He swirled a glass of whiskey in his hand, his eyes mocking as he watched the commotion outside the gate. "This is just the territorial instinct of a selfish bastard." I turned around, my expression calm. "He doesn't care about me, but he can't accept his possession being taken away by a higher-ranking predator. Should I take care of it?" Lu Yuchuan took a sip of wine, his tone casual, as if discussing how to dispose of a piece of trash. "No." I curled the corner of my lips. "Some shows are only satisfying when you perform them yourself. Mr. Lu, won't you invite them in? It just so happens that I also have some accounts to settle with this Mr. Gu." Lu Yuchuan gave me a deep look and pressed the intercom. "Let them in." 5 minutes later, Ji Yuhuai and Lin Yu rushed into the reception room. When Ji Yuhuai saw me sitting calmly beside Lu Yuchuan, dressed in that luxurious wedding gown, with Lu Yuchuan's hand casually resting on the back of my chair, his eyes instantly turned red. "Shen ruining! Have you no shame? You haven't even called off our engagement, yet you're already in such a hurry to climb into another man's bed." Ji Yuhuai pointed at me, his voice trembling with the fury of betrayal, even though he was the one who had betrayed this ceremony first. "Call off the engagement." I set down the light tea in my hand, my movements as graceful as if they had been copied from a textbook. "Ji Yuhuai, the moment you left the ceremony hall for Lin Yu, I had already issued a statement on the Shen Group's official website. As of now, not only are we no longer engaged, but we are also the defendant and plaintiff in a court case. As for climbing into bed," I deliberately leaned closer into Lu Yuchuan's embrace, feeling his body tense up for a second, but then, his large hand steadied my shoulder, holding me in a posture so intimate it felt perfectly natural. "Mr. Lu's bed is much cleaner than yours, which reeks of green tea." "Miss Shen, you can't say that about a Huai." Lin Yu nestled weakly in Ji Yuhuai's arms, like a delicate white flower on the verge of withering. "It's my fault for being weak and having a heart attack that dragged a Huai into this. If you want to hate someone, hate me, not the GU Corporation. The GU Corporation is a Huai's life's work." "Heart attack." I let out a light laugh, then pulled a document from the table behind me and flung it in her face. "Miss Lin, these are your medical records from 3 hospitals, including your so-called heart disease diagnosis, all forged. What's even more interesting is that you signed up for an advanced diving course just 2 weeks ago, a heart patient doing deep-sea diving. Are you challenging medical miracles, or are you challenging my intelligence?" Lin Yu's face instantly turned from pale to ashen, her mouth agape, unable to utter a word for a long time. Ji Yuhuai was stunned. He turned to look at Lin Yu, his eyes filled with disbelief. Yeah, this record. Huai, let me explain. I was just too afraid of losing you." Lin Yu began to shed tears out of habit, attempting to use the same old trick. "Enough." Lu Yuchuan, who had been silent all along, suddenly spoke up. His voice wasn't loud, yet it carried an authority that silenced everyone. He slowly set down his wine glass, his gaze cutting across Ji Yuhuai's face like a sharp blade. "Mr. Gu, since Miss Shen is now my wife, this is the Lu family's territory. You barging in on my wedding night is not only an insult to Miss Shen but also a provocation to the Lu family. Mr. Lu, this is a misunderstanding between us. Ji Hui ultimately felt outmatched in front of Lu Yuchuan, his tone unconsciously softening. There is no misunderstanding. Lu Yuchuan stood up coldly, his imposing height of 19 meters forcing Ji Hui to involuntarily step back. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., the Lu Group's legal team will contact the Shun Group to formally file a joint lawsuit against the Ji family. I have already gathered all the evidence of your misappropriation of the Shun family's investment to cover overseas losses. Ji Hui's legs went completely weak. He had originally thought Shun ruining was just throwing a tantrum and that he could easily coax her or force her to return with him to continue serving as his free labor and cash cow, but he never expected that Shun ruining would not only find herself an unbeatable groom but also hand him a steel blade aimed at the Ji family's lifeline. Ruo Ning, do you have to be so ruthless? Ji Hui stared at me intently. Our 5 years together, can it really not compare to these few pieces of paper? 5 years. I lowered my head, smoothing my skirt with a coldness he had never seen before. For those 5 years, I managed Ji Corporation's financial reports for you, dealt with those difficult partners, and helped you establish yourself in this world of fame and fortune. And you, what did you give me? An excuse to run away from our wedding, or a third party full of lies? I stood up, walked over to Ji Hui, and whispered in his ear with a tone of contempt that only the two of us could hear. Ji Hui, this is just the appetizer. I will make you watch with your own eyes how the Ji family you're so proud of rots away, bit by bit. Get out. Lu Yuchuan spat out a single word. The bodyguards immediately stepped forward, dragging Ji Hui and Lin Yu out like chickens. Outside the door, Ji Hui's furious roars and Lin Yu's screams could be heard, but soon, all of it faded away beyond the thick soundproof walls of the Lu family mansion. The hall fell silent once more. I breathed a sigh of relief and was about to pull away from Lu Yuchuan's embrace when he suddenly tightened his grip, pulling me even closer. Not bad acting, Mrs. Lu, he said, looking down at me, a hint of something inscrutable flickering in his eyes. It's just mutual exploitation, Mr. Lu. I tried to break free, only to find his grip was astonishingly strong. Just mutual exploitation. His slender fingers gently stroked my jaw, his voice low and husky. Shun ruining, you played the drive the tiger to devour the wolf move quite brilliantly. But have you ever considered that this tiger might be one you can't tame? I never wanted to tame anyone. I met his gaze directly. All I need is victory. He smiled, a breathtakingly handsome smile under the light. He released his grip and turned to walk toward the study. Go to bed early, Mrs. Lu. Tomorrow's shareholders' meeting is going to be a tough battle. Don't keep your tiger waiting too long. I stood in the empty hall, watching his retreating figure, and my heart skipped a beat involuntarily. This man was far more dangerous than I had imagined, yet the feeling of conspiring with a tiger was, damn it, strangely exhilarating. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Lu family mansion, casting cold geometric shadows. On the carpet, standing before the mirror, I fastened the buttons of a deep black suit jacket myself. Compared to yesterday's intricate, multi-layered wedding dress, this sleek professional attire felt more like armor for my return to the battlefield. Lu Yuchuan was seated at the head of the long dining table. Today, he was dressed in a dark gray three-piece suit, exuding an air of restrained aloofness that kept others at a distance. Ready, he set down the financial newspaper in his hand and looked up at me. Of course, I took a cup of black coffee from the servant and drank it in one gulp. The bitter taste exploded in my mouth, instantly clearing my mind, which had been slightly fatigued from only 3 hours of sleep the night before. Today was the semi-annual shareholders' meeting of the GU Group. GU Hui probably hadn't yet emerged from the shadow of yesterday's marital breakdown, but he would never have imagined that after that absurd wedding ended, I had already used the capital power of the Lu Group to swallow up all the scattered shares he had sold on the secondary market overnight. The sleek black luxury car from the Lu Group headquarters slowly came to a stop in front of the GU Corporation building. I stepped out of the car and looked at the employees in the lobby, who appeared flustered and were huddled together, whispering among themselves. Once upon a time, they would have respectfully addressed me as President Shun, but today, their eyes were filled with fear and curiosity. Miss Shun, I'm afraid it's not convenient for you to enter today. At the entrance of the conference room, 2 burly security guards stopped me. Chen Sen, GU Hui's special assistant, walked out from behind them, looking at me with a complicated expression. Mr. GU has made it clear that you are no longer the GU family's future daughter-in-law, and the withdrawal of Shun Group's shares is still in process. Therefore, you have no right to attend today's internal shareholders meeting. No right. I took a document stamped with an official seal from my assistant behind me and flung it directly at Chen Sen's chest. Assistant Chen, open your eyes and take a good look. This is the joint shareholding certificate of the Lu Group and the Shun Group, combined with the scattered shares I just cleared from the secondary market. I now represent the Lu Group and hold 25.8% of the voting rights in GU Corporation. I am currently the largest independent shareholder of GU Corporation. Chen Sen's face instantly turned deathly pale, his hands trembling as he opened the file, fine beads of sweat breaking out on his forehead. I pushed open the heavy solid wood door with a forceful shove inside the conference room. The previously heated argument abruptly ceased. GU Hui sat in the CEO's seat, his eyes bloodshot. Old Master GU occupied the head of the table, his face so dark it seemed to drip with gloom. Lin Yu was also sitting in a corner, dressed in a proper white dress, attempting to maintain her victimized posture. Shun Ruining, who let you in here? GU Hui suddenly stood up, slamming his hand on the table. Mr. GU, mind your words. I pulled out the seat at the head of the table on the left and gracefully sat down. As the head of the Lu family, Lu Yuchuan did not personally attend such a small scene, but the chief legal advisor and financial team he sent were now filing in, standing behind me, a dark, imposing mass with an intimidating presence. Whether I'm here to save the GU family or to bury it depends entirely on your next move. Mr. GU, I placed my intertwined fingers on the table. Exuding an aura of authority, old Mr. GU coughed a few times and spoke with a sinister tone. Ruining, after all, you and Hui once had a relationship. Must it come to this? If you want shares, I can give them to you. But bringing the Lu family in, are you inviting a wolf into the house, old sir? The wolf is already inside. I sneered and signaled my assistant to turn on the projector. Let's cut to the chase. Over the past year, GU Hui abused his position to funnel 3 billion in benefits to Lin Yu's studio through overseas shell companies. Of that 3 billion, 2 billion came from the Shun family's investment. This is the financial transparency report. Shareholders, please take a look. The large screen clearly displayed each transfer path. The veteran shareholders in the meeting room immediately changed their expressions, slamming the table in anger. GU Hui, this is embezzlement, using everyone's hard-earned money to support a mistress. What do you take us for? GU Hui was completely panicked. He looked to Lin Yu for help. Lin Yu's eyes reddened, and she was about to speak again. Uncles, that was my startup capital. Hui was just, shut up. I shot a sharp glare, my voice low but commanding. This is a shareholders meeting, not your performance stage, Miss Lin. Your studio is suspected of money laundering. The police are likely already on their way. I suggest you remain silent now. Lin Yu was so frightened she immediately fell silent. Slumping in her chair, unable to move, Shun Ruining, do you think this is enough to bring me down? GU Hui gritted his teeth, glaring at me fiercely. I am the heir of the GU family. I still hold 35% of the shares. Your little voting rights can't touch my foundation. Is that so? I smiled slightly and took out a gambling agreement. GU Hui, have you forgotten the debt guarantee agreement you signed with me 6 months ago to expand overseas? If GU Corporation's quarterly revenue drops by more than 40%, or if a major credibility crisis causes the stock price to halve, the creditor has the right to demand shares in lieu of debt. At 9 o'clock this morning, GU Corporation's opening price already hit the limit down. Now, I am your biggest creditor. GU Hui's face instantly turned from red to green, then to ashen gray. He remembered that agreement signed in his most triumphant moment, after a few drinks. Back then, he thought that with the Shun family backing him, he would remain invincible forever. You've been scheming against me since then. GU Hui's voice trembled. No, I stood up, looking down at him with eyes as cold as iron. It was from the moment you answered Lin Yu's call during our engagement party rehearsal that I began saving myself. GU Hui, what you thought were coincidences were all inevitabilities after I woke up. At that moment, a major shareholder stood up and respectfully addressed me. President Shun, since you now hold the core debt and The highest equity stake. We propose to remove Gu Huai from his position as CEO. We suggest that you temporarily take over the asset restructuring of the Gu family. What do you think? I agree as well. When the wall is about to collapse, everyone gives it a push. Watching those who once fawned over Gu Huai now turn against him one by one, I felt not the slightest ripple of emotion in my heart. Gu Huai sat dejectedly in his chair, looking at me, a trace of fear and regret finally flickering in his eyes, but I knew that this regret was only because he had lost his power, not because he had lost me. Mr. Shen, Mr. Liu is waiting for you outside. A bodyguard from the Liu family entered and whispered a reminder. I turned and left the conference room without giving Gu Huai another glance. As I walked out of the Gu Corporation building, Liu Yuchuan's black Rolls-Royce was parked at the foot of the steps. He pushed the car door open and stepped out, leaning casually against the vehicle. He didn't ask about the outcome, because his eyes, which seemed to control everything, already said it all. Mrs. Liu, you fought the first battle beautifully. He reached out and naturally took my laptop bag. This is just reclaiming what is mine. I looked at him, my heartbeat slightly quickening. Mr. Liu, the port development project you promised can now be prepared for launch. As for the Gu family, that rotten piece of wood, I'm going to split it into pieces and use it as roadbed. Alright, as you say. He helped me open the car door, and just as I was about to get in, he suddenly leaned close to my ear and whispered, "But, Mrs. Liu, the way you carried yourself with such authority inside just now, I really liked it." His breath brushed past my ear, sending a faint, tingling current through me. I froze for a moment, then calmly sat down in the car as if nothing had happened. The blade of revenge had already pierced the enemy's heart, but I knew that the true crisis and the real game had only just begun to unfold between Liu Yuchuan and me. The night in Jiangcheng is aglow with neon lights, shimmering like flowing fragments of gold. Tonight's charity gala is held at the Cloud Peak Mansion halfway up the mountainside, a social hub for the elite and a silent battlefield where countless shifts of power unfold. I changed out of my sharp business suit and slipped into a deep green velvet backless gown. This color is notoriously difficult to pull off, but on me, it accentuated my snow-white complexion, exuding a cold, untouchable elegance. Liu Yuchuan stood waiting for me at the entrance. Today, he wore a pair of silver-rimmed glasses, a rare sight that softened the sharpness in his eyes, adding a touch of refined, almost forbidden allure. Mrs. Liu, there will be many old friends tonight, Liu Yuchuan said, extending his hand, palm up, in a gesture of invitation. That would be even better. I placed my hand in his palm, a slight smile curling at the corner of my mouth. After all, it's always a shame when the creditor doesn't show up at the debt settlement. When Liu Yuchuan and I stepped into the banquet hall, the gentle strains of the violin in the air seemed to falter for a second. The elegantly dressed socialites and men in tailored suits cast glances at our tightly clasped hands. Some of them had just congratulated me a few days ago at the Gu family's engagement preparation party. But now, their eyes were filled with a mix of awe and unease. Miss Shen, oh no, I should say Mrs. Liu now, Mrs. Su, notorious in high society for her sharp tongue, approached with a champagne glass in hand. Her gaze swept over the blue diamond at my neck before she covered her mouth with a light laugh. What skillful maneuvering! No sooner had you escaped the Gu family's pit of fire than you latched onto President Liu. The speed of your change of face is faster than flipping a book. I took a composed sip of my wine and replied calmly, "You flatter me, Mrs. Su. This isn't a change of face, it's called cutting losses. Just like Mr. Su's recent unfinished building project in the Southern District. If you had even half my decisiveness, the Su family wouldn't be in such a hurry to sell off heirloom antiques at a charity auction to cover the losses." Mrs. Su's face instantly turned from red to purple, and she awkwardly retreated into the crowd. Just then, a commotion arose at the entrance. Gu Huai had actually arrived with Lin Yu. Gu Huai looked noticeably thinner, his once bright eyes now bloodshot, yet, to maintain his last shred of dignity, he still wore an expensive custom-tailored suit. By his side, Lin Yu was dressed in an extremely eye-catching manner. She wore the season's most exclusive limited edition white dress, even accessorized with a full set of pink diamond jewelry. I glanced at Liu Yuchuan, who lowered his voice and whispered in my ear. Gu Huai used the last of the Gu family's reserve funds. He wants to use tonight's necklace auction to show the outside world that the GU family is still flush with money, in order to stabilize the turbulent stock price, a foolish struggle of a trapped beast. I sneered coldly. The auction soon began. I had no interest in the first few exhibits until the final piece appeared, Tears of the Muse. It was a ruby necklace passed down from the royal family a century ago, and due to its rich pigeon blood color, it had always been a treasure coveted by countless collectors, and this necklace was one that Lin Yu had hinted at more than once on social media as the wedding gift she most desired. Starting bid, 5 million. As soon as the auctioneer's voice fell, Gu Huai eagerly raised his paddle, 6 million. Gu Huai's voice was loud, carrying a kind of frantic determination. The room fell silent for a moment. A smug smile appeared on Lin Yu's face as she glanced provocatively in my direction. 8 million. I leisurely raised my paddle. Gu Huai's expression changed instantly as he turned to stare at me, his eyes filled with hatred. 10 million. 15 million. I replied without a moment's hesitation, my tone as calm as if I were quoting the price of groceries. Shen ruining. Are you deliberately opposing me? Gu Huai gritted his teeth, his voice a low, furious growl. This is a charity auction, Mr. Gu. The highest bidder wins, I said, lightly swirling my wine glass, my expression unperturbed. 20 million. Gu Huai went all in. This was already double the necklace's actual value. Lin Yu behind him tightly gripped his sleeve, her eyes gleaming with greed. 30 million. I raised my paddle again. The entire room erupted in an uproar. 30 million for a ruby necklace. This was pure financial dominance. Cold sweat beaded on Gu Huai's forehead. He knew the Gu family's liquid assets were already depleted. If he continued, tomorrow's company payday would turn into a day of bankruptcy, but he couldn't lose, especially not here, in front of everyone, to the woman he had once cast aside like trash. 35 million. Gu Huai's voice trembled. I was about to raise my paddle again when Lu Yuchuan suddenly grasped my hand. He took the paddle from me, glanced at Gu Huai with a faint look, and spoke softly, yet his voice carried through the entire hall via the microphone. 50 million. Gu Huai slumped into his chair, unable to utter another cent. 50 million once, 50 million twice, 50 million 3 times. Sold. Lin Yu's face twisted completely. The glory she had anticipated had turned into a resounding slap. However, this was only the beginning. Just as the auctioneer announced that the necklace belonged to Lu Yuchuan, I stood up. Instead of walking to the stage to claim the prize, I turned my gaze toward a middle-aged woman seated in the back row. She was the most prominent antique appraisal expert in Jiangcheng. Miss Lin, I heard that for tonight, you specifically brought out the dragon and phoenix auspicious bracelets that the Shen family once lent to the Gu family. To make a grand impression, I pointed at the pair of crystal-clear bracelets on Lin Yu's wrist, my smile gradually turning cold. Lin Yu instinctively withdrew her hand, forcing herself to say, "This was given to me by a Huai. It's a family heirloom of the Gu family." "No, that belongs to the Shen family." I clapped my hands, and several security personnel along with a notary stepped forward. "The Shen family once lent it to the Gu family for an exhibition. I have the original loan agreement and anti-counterfeiting code here. Miss Lin, privately occupying and wearing someone else's heirloom is legally considered unlawful possession of another's property." The notary stepped forward and publicly tested the item with an instrument. Lin Yu screamed in fright, and Gu Huai tried to intervene but was held back by the Lu family's bodyguards a meter away. "The code matches. It is indeed an asset of the Shen family," the notary announced loudly under the pointing and whispering of the crowd. Lin Yu was forced to take off her bracelet on the spot. The humiliation of having her disguise publicly stripped away made her wish she could vanish into the ground. "Miss Lin Yu, there's one more thing." I walked up to her, lowering my voice just enough for the surrounding socialites to hear clearly. "The haute couture you're wearing tonight is a counterfeit, because the real one is currently hanging in the Lu family's wardrobe." "You're lying," Lin Yu screamed in panic. Madame Su and the other socialites immediately gathered around. As seasoned veterans of the fashion world, they leaned in for a closer look and instantly let out gasps of disbelief. "Oh my, the stitching is truly uneven, and the fabric sheen is off. It's utterly humiliating, wearing a stolen bracelet, dressed in knockoff clothes, and still trying to blend into our circle." Mocking voices swarmed from all directions. Gu Huai tried to lead Lin Yu away, but they were stopped at the door by several police officers. Mr. Gu, you are suspected of illegal embezzlement of public funds and financial fraud. Please come with us to assist in the investigation. The moment the police officer clamped the handcuffs on Gu's wrist, he suddenly turned and looked at me. In that instant, the anger in his eyes was gone, replaced by a deep, bottomless fear. He finally understood I hadn't just changed the groom. I had personally built the most magnificent gallows and invited him to step right in. Lu Yuchuan wrapped his arm around my waist and, under the gaze of everyone, personally fastened the ruby necklace worth 50 million around my neck. Mrs. Lu, whatever you desire, I will bring it to you, he whispered in my ear, his warm breath a stark contrast to the cold gemstone. I looked at myself in the mirror, the necklace shimmering with a blood-red glow at my collarbone. This counterattack had just entered the most brutal phase of the game, the Gu family ancestral home, this Suzhou-style garden that once symbolized the heritage of Jiangcheng. Now exudes a decaying desolation amidst the continuous drizzle. I push open the heavy vermilion lacquered gate, and the sound of my heels stepping on the waterlogged bluestone slabs echoes dully. Lu Yuchuan walks silently by my side, holding a large black umbrella. His cool, detached aura stands out sharply in the damp air, as if the pervasive gloom of the garden cannot touch him in the slightest. Ruining, you've finally come back. Madame Gu sits on a Huanghuali wood chair in the main hall. In just a few days, she seems to have aged 10 years. After Gu Huai was taken away for investigation, the Gu family fell into unprecedented chaos. She looks at me, her eyes filled with a sickly hope, even a hint of ingratiation. Huai has suffered a lot inside. He says he knows he was wrong. You are the daughter of the Shun family. If you are willing to drop the lawsuit and say it was a normal inter-family fund transfer between the Shun and Gu families, Huai can be released. This ancestral home will be yours in the future. I surveyed the room, every piece of furniture, every decoration, all personally selected and gifted by my father when the Shun family invested in the Gu family. Mine, I sneered, walking up to Mrs. Gu. Mrs. Gu, has your memory failed you? The Shun family's investment back then was for the joint development of our family's alliance through marriage, not to support Gu Huai's mistress, and certainly not to enable your Gu family to commit murder for profit. The moment the words murder for profit were uttered, Mrs. Gu's face turned deathly pale, and the teacup in her hand clattered heavily onto the table. What nonsense are you talking about? Your parents died in a car accident. An accident? I turned my head and spoke coldly toward the darkness behind the screen. Come out. Uncle Wang, it's time to settle the accounts from back then. A stooped old man, dressed in a faded work uniform, tremblingly stepped forward. He was an old servant of the Gu family, having driven for the old master Gu for 20 years. Miss, Uncle Wang said, tears streaming down his face as he saw me. I've wronged Mr. Shun, and I've wronged you. Back then, when old Master Gu found out the Shun family wanted to withdraw their investment and shift it to the southern city, to keep that money, he tampered with Mr. Shun's car. Rubbish. What nonsense are you spouting? You old lunatic, Madame Gu shrieked, lunging forward to grab Uncle Wang. But Lu Yuchuan extended a hand and effortlessly pushed her aside. Lu Yuchuan's gaze was as cold and deep as an abyss. He looked down at Mrs. Gu, who had collapsed on the floor, his tone devoid of any emotion. Mrs. Gu, since the witness is here, the physical evidence naturally won't be missing. The private investigators from the Lu family found a beneficiary change agreement from that year in Mr. Gu's safe. Guess who the beneficiary was? Mrs. Gu went completely limp, her lips trembling without uttering a single word. I felt as if all the blood in my body was flowing backward, and anger surged through my chest like a trapped beast. I had always believed that the accident that took my parents was just a twist of fate, but I never imagined it was a carefully orchestrated hunt by a venomous snake lurking in the shadows. Ruining. Don't look. A cool, large hand covered my eyes. Lu Yuchuan had somehow walked up behind me, his broad and solid chest shielding me from the ugliest scene in this room. Leave the rest to the professionals, he whispered in my ear. I took a deep breath, pushed his hand away, and my gaze turned cold and sharp once more. I walked up to Mrs. Gu and said, word by word, Mrs. Gu, do you think all I want is for the Gu Corporation to go bankrupt? No. What I want is for every single member of your GU family to spend the rest of their lives paying for my parents' lives." At that moment, hurried footsteps echoed from the corridor outside the hall. It was Old Master GU, leaning on his cane and supported by bodyguards. He walked in. Even at this moment, he still tried to maintain the unshakable composure of an elder, as if a mountain had collapsed before him without changing his expression. "Mr. Liu, Miss Shen, it's wise to leave some room for reconciliation in life. As we may cross paths again in the future." Old Master Gu's voice was hoarse. "The judge won't take Uncle Wang's words entirely at face value. I have the best legal team. As long as I remain standing, the GU family still has a chance to turn things around. By making such a scene today, aren't you afraid of a mutually destructive outcome? The fish may die, but the net won't necessarily break." Lu Yuchuan pulled a stack of printed documents from the inner pocket of his suit and casually tossed them. The white papers fluttered down like snowflakes at Old Master Gu's feet. "These are all the money laundering records of the GU family over the past 10 years, as well as evidence of your smuggling activities at the South City port." Lu Yuchuan adjusted his glasses, his gaze behind the lenses filled with contempt. "Old Master GU, did you really think I returned to China to clean up the Lu family just for the inheritance? The debt your second uncle owed back then will be repaid by you, the creditor, today. That seems fair." Old Master GU looked at the evidence, his body trembling violently. The composure and trump cards he had prided himself on now seemed utterly ridiculous in the face of Lu Yuchuan's absolute power. "Shun ruining. Are you really going to drive us to the wall?" Old Master GU looked at me, his eyes finally revealing a plea. "The ones who have been driving others to the wall have always been you." I stepped forward, snatched the cane symbolizing the authority of the GU family head from his hand, and slammed it fiercely to the ground. "From today onward, this estate no longer bears the GU name. It will once again become the Shen Mansion." The rain outside grew heavier and heavier. I walked out of the main hall and stood on the steps, gazing at the desolation that filled the garden. Lu Yuchuan walked up behind me and once again held up that black umbrella for me. The sound of raindrops hitting the umbrella's surface echoed like the lingering notes of a funeral. "Mr. Liu, thank you," I said softly. "Without him, I might still have sought revenge, but it would never have been so swift and thorough." "Mrs. Liu, you've forgotten." His grip on the umbrella handle tightened slightly, his arm pressed against my shoulder, bringing a wave of genuine warmth. I said, "Whatever you set your sights on, the Liu group will take it all. The fate of the GU family, the Liu group will take that too." I turned to look at him. In the curtain-like rainy night, his eyes were cool and profound. I once thought I would never trust anyone again, but now, beside this decisive and ruthless man, I actually felt a long-lost sense of peace. "Let's go." I gave him a genuine smile. The funeral bell for the GU family has only just begun to toll. We walked side by side into the rain, under the shadow of the black umbrella, two originally lonely souls, bound by this bloody and vengeful transaction, had somehow forged an improbable, fateful resonance in the main hall of the GU family. The wailing of Madame GU and the dry cough of Old Master GU intertwined, heralding the complete end of an era. As night fell, the Yunqi winery, located in the suburbs, was shrouded in thick mist. As the most exclusive high-end social venue in Jiangcheng, it was hosting a private tasting event tonight. I looked at myself in the dressing mirror, my fingertips gently tracing the crimson mark on my neck. Tonight's mission was not only to shatter the GU family's last illusions but also to completely remove Lin Yu, the poisonous thorn embedded in my flesh. "Miss Shen, everything is ready." Lu Yuchuan pushed the door open and entered. Tonight, he wore an imposing black overcoat that made him look like a king of the night. After Jiu Huai was released on bail, Lin Yu contacted several media outlets that used to have dealings with the Jiu family. She plans to stage a forcing the legitimate wife to step down drama at the winery. She's quite diligent. I took the specially designed miniature microphone Lu Yuchuan handed me and clipped it behind my earring. She thinks that as long as she can capture evidence of me losing control after drinking or shifting my affections, she can use public opinion to pressure you into divorcing me. Giving Jiu Huai a chance to catch his breath, Lu Yuchuan leaned in slightly, his slender fingers gently smoothing the stray strands of hair that had fallen over my shoulders. His voice was low and husky. "She underestimates your clarity of mind, and she underestimates my possessiveness. My heart trembled slightly, but I quickly put on a cold and glamorous disguise and stepped into the venue. Halfway through the cocktail party, Ji Hui indeed appeared with Lin Yu. Although Ji Hui had been released on bail, his expression was bleak, and he exuded a desperate, frenzied air. As for Lin Yu, she wore a look of grievance, tightly clutching a wine glass in her hand, her eyes occasionally drifting in my direction. Ruo Ning, let's talk. Ji Hui blocked my path. He seemed to have had quite a bit to drink, reeking of alcohol. Mr. Ji, you should refer to yourself as Mr. Ji. After all, you've already lost your CEO title. I held a glass of champagne, my expression indifferent. Are you determined to drive me to ruin? Ji Hui lowered his voice, a strange glint flickering in his eyes. Yu is pregnant, Shen Ruo Ning, as the legitimate wife. You can't even give the Ji family a child. If you're willing to whisper a word to Lu Yuchuan now and have him back off from the Nancheng project, I might consider letting that child acknowledge you as the rightful mother. I could hardly keep from laughing out loud. This kind of foul, outdated logic from the last century could actually come out of the mouth of a modern elite. Ji Hui, whether Lin Yu is pregnant or not, even if she were carrying a golden nugget, what does that have to do with me? I turned to the side, deliberately leaving an opening. As for the South City project, you can save that to discuss with your cellmates in prison. Seeing that I wasn't taking the bait, Lin Yu, who had been hiding in the shadows, suddenly rushed out, the glass in her hand accidentally tilted, and the entire cup of deep red liquid splashed all over my gown. Oh no, sister ruining, I'm so sorry, I really didn't mean to, Lin Yu shrieked, her voice loud enough to draw the attention of half the room. I stumbled a bit, holding my forehead. I feel a little dizzy, sister ruining. Let me help you to the lounge in the back to rest. A flicker of triumphant delight flashed in Lin Yu's eyes. She quickly called 2 waiters and half forced me to leave the hall in the corridor leading to the lounge in the back garden. I could sense several hidden cameras quietly following and filming. Lin Yu pushed me into a luxurious suite and locked the door behind her. Shen ruining, stop pretending. Lin Yu shed her disguise, sneering at me with a malicious grin. The fragrance in this room has been spiked. As soon as that male escort comes in later, the live broadcast outside will start right on schedule. Tomorrow, the whole of Jiangcheng will see the dignified Mrs. Lu acting wantonly in the winery. By then, let's see if Lu Yuchuan still wants a defective product like you. Leaning back on the sofa, my previously dazed eyes instantly cleared. Lin Yu, have you forgotten whose property this winery is now? I leisurely pulled out a spare phone from my clutch, lightly tapping the screen with my fingertip. The TV screen in the lounge suddenly lit up, displaying Lin Yu's stunned expression at that very moment, along with the backs of the guests in the hall who were watching this live broadcast unfold. You're live streaming in reverse, Lin Yu screamed as she rushed towards the camera. Not only that, I stood up, closing in step by step. Everything you just said, along with Ji Hui's attempt to lure me into claiming the legitimate heir at the door, has been completely recorded. Miss Lin, hiring someone to frame me, inciting defamation, plus your previous forgery of medical records and illegal possession of property. How many years do you think all these charges combined will land you in prison? Impossible. I'm clearly the victim here. Lin Yu went into a frenzy, grabbing at my clothes in an attempt to fabricate a scene of struggle and humiliation. Just then, the door was kicked open with tremendous force. Lu Yuchuan arrived with his bodyguards and a crowd of media reporters like a divine force. Camera flashes went off frantically, capturing Lin Yu's twisted, ferocious face and my slightly disheveled yet still dignified appearance as she pulled at me. Ji Hui, is this what you call having a proper talk? Lu Yuchuan strode forward, taking off his coat and wrapping it tightly around me. His gaze was cold enough to freeze the air around us, and he abruptly turned to glare at Ji Hui, who was following behind. Ji Hui was completely dumbfounded. Watching the replay of Lin Yu's self-destructive plan on the large screen, his legs gave way, and he collapsed to his knees on the floor. Lin Yu, you fool, Ji Hui roared. Mr. Lu, MS, Shen, based on the live evidence just collected, Miss Lin Yu is suspected of multiple criminal offenses. A lawyer who had been waiting for a long time pushed the door open and entered, followed by several stern-faced investigators. May I ask if we should proceed with the control measures now? Lin Yu collapsed on the floor, crying her heart out. Why? Save me. I don't want to go to prison. I'm not pregnant. I lied to you. I just wanted to help you pull yourself together. Upon hearing the words not pregnant, Ji Huai was so enraged that he spat out a mouthful of blood and immediately fell unconscious, leaning against Lu Yuchuan's embrace. I watched coldly as this farce came to an end. Mrs. Lu, watching too much of this kind of drama will dirty your eyes. Lu Yuchuan covered my ears, guiding me past the crowd of frantically photographing reporters toward the private exit at the back of the winery. The evening breeze was gentle, dispersing the stifling scent of powder and perfume lingering in the winery. I could have handled it myself, I said to Lu Yuchuan. I know you could. Lu Yuchuan stopped walking and looked at me under the moonlight, his eyes carrying a hint of something I couldn't quite decipher. But as your husband, if I can't even protect you from being smeared like this, then this deal would be a terrible loss for me. He suddenly leaned in, his warm lips pressed against my forehead, a light touch that quickly withdrew, yet carried an undeniable sense of a vow. Shen ruining, the revenge will soon be over. After it ends, what do you plan to do with me? I was stunned. I had thought we were merely fighting side by side under a contract, but I never expected that in this carefully laid trap. What truly made me feel in danger was his gradually revealed sincerity. Suspense hung in the air. While the Jiyu family and Lin Yu had already been pushed onto the guillotine from which they could never recover, all in this one night the building of the Jiangcheng Intermediate People's Court appeared particularly solemn under the overcast sky, its grey granite exterior exuding an air of inviolable authority. This day marked the formal court hearing for the Shun family's lawsuit against the Jiyu family for financial fraud, embezzlement, and the pursuit of the truth behind the car accident from years past. The entrance to the court had long been swarmed by media from all sides, the frequency of camera flashes as dense as a summer downpour. I pushed open the car door, and a black long-handled umbrella steadily shielded me from above. Lu Yuchuan's expression was stern and cold. Today, he had changed into a pure black formal suit, even his tie devoid of any pattern. The entire man resembled an ancient sword, its edge sheathed yet still radiating a palpable, lethal aura. Nervous, he whispered in my ear, the web of his large hand gently rubbing my shoulder. No, I've waited too long for this day. I lifted my head and looked up the steps. Jiyu Huai was walking up the steps accompanied by his lawyer. He was emaciated, his once well-fitted suit now hanging loosely on him. Due to long-term insomnia and anxiety, his eye sockets were sunken, and he exuded a desperate, fierce aura. When he saw me and Lu Yuchuan standing side by side, he suddenly broke free from his lawyer and rushed toward me, disregarding all decorum. Shen ruining, you've won. You've already won. Jiyu Huai roared, his voice hoarse like sandpaper scraping across a table. The Jiyu family is bankrupt. My mother has gone mad, and I'm going to prison. Are you satisfied? Do you have to see the Jiyu family completely wiped out before you're content? I stopped in my tracks, looking down at him coldly. Where was the air of the top young master of Jiangcheng now? Satisfied, I curled the corner of my mouth, revealing an extremely cruel smile. Jiyu Huai, when you reached for the Shun family's assets, when you tacitly allowed your father to cause my parents' deaths, you should have known there was no turning back on this path. Instead of begging for my forgiveness now, why don't you go ask my parents in the dirt if they're willing to forgive you? Ruining, I beg you. Jiyu Huai actually knelt down on the spot with a thud. Right in front of everyone, a frenzy of shutter clicks erupted from the media section. As long as you drop the lawsuit, I'm willing to give you all of the Jiyu family's remaining overseas assets. I'll serve you like a beast of burden for the rest of my life. I'll do anything you ask. He tried to reach out and grab the hem of my skirt, his eyes filled with a sickening humility. Lu Yuchuan let out a cold snort, took a long stride, and subtly shielded me behind him. His black leather shoe landed precisely just before Jiyu Huai's fingertips, which were about to touch the hem of my skirt. The pressure was not heavy, but it carried a devastating warning. Mr. Jiyu, is self-harm in front of the public to beg for pity your final public relations tactic? Lu Yuchuan looked down at him from his superior position, his tone icy. The Lu family's legal team is right inside. If you still have any strength left, you'd better save it to explain to the judge why there were several huge hush money transfers in the Jiyu family's secret account on the very night of the Shun family's car accident. Ji Huai's face instantly turned deathly pale, his whole body like a fish out of water, collapsing onto the concrete floor, unable to make another sound inside the courtroom. The atmosphere was solemn and dignified. I sat in the plaintiff's seat, watching the Ji family's legal team, once hailed as undefeated in Jiangcheng. They were now on pins and needles because the chain of evidence submitted by the Liu family was simply too perfect. From the money laundering evidence at Lin Yu's studio to the recorded phone calls of the old servant being instructed by the Ji family patriarch to sabotage the vehicle, each piece of evidence was like a nail, firmly pinning the Ji family to the pillar of shame. Plaintiff, please call your supplementary witness. The judge struck the gavel. The door opened. It was Lin Yu who walked in. She was dressed in a grey prison uniform, her hands shackled in cold handcuffs. Due to the previous false accusation, she had already been detained in advance. At this moment, her eyes were hollow, but upon seeing Ji Huai, a twisted hatred ignited in their depths. I want to report. Lin Yu stood at the witness stand, her voice hoarse. Ji Huai not only participated in financial fraud, but he also incited me to use online violence in an attempt to psychologically destroy Shen Ruining. He once said that if Shen Ruining committed suicide, the Shen family's inheritance would rightfully fall into the Ji family's hands. Even the evidence from the car accident back then was personally destroyed by him to help old Master Ji. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire courtroom erupted in an uproar. Ji Huai suddenly stood up, pointing at Lin Yu and shouting, "You bitch, you're lying, it was you who seduced me into doing this." Enough, the judge sternly rebuked. I sat in my seat, watching this pair of lovers, who had once claimed to be true love, tear into each other in court. They had once trampled on my dignity for the sake of so-called love, and now, under the judgment of the law, that veneer of hypocritical affection was like a thin sheet of paper, burned away by greed and fear. Lu Yuchuan gently grasped my hand under the table. His palm was warm and firm, conveying a silent strength. "Shen Ruining, I've helped you get this one back," he whispered in my ear. As the trial reached its conclusion, the judge announced a recess, with the verdict to be announced at a later date, but everyone knew the Ji family was completely finished. When we walked out of the courthouse building, the originally overcast sky had unexpectedly cracked open, and a beam of golden sunlight slanted down onto the steps before being taken away by the bailiffs. Ji Huai took one last look back. He watched me, holding Lu Yuchuan's arm, walking in the sunlight, while he was descending step by step into the dark, sunless life behind iron bars. At that moment, a profound, despairing self-mockery flickered in his eyes. "Mr. Lu, thank you." I said these words once again. "Don't thank me." Lu Yuchuan stopped walking, turned to face me. His dark pupils reflected my image, and in that moment, the sense of aloofness vanished, replaced by a scorching, even somewhat dangerous possessiveness. "Shen Ruining, the Ji family is finished. Next, we should discuss the long-term employment contract for Mrs. Lu. Here, there is no option to break the contract or return the goods." I look at him. Lu Yuchuan under the sunlight appears so dazzling. Upon the ruins of this revenge, a brand new world is becoming within reach. All because of this man's presence. The cold wind of late autumn swept through the hall. The Ji family villa, once a symbol of immense wealth in this city, now stood in desolation. The main door was sealed with the court's gilded notices, like a series of hideous scars. I led the liquidation team and stepped onto this land once more. This time, I was not the bullied daughter-in-law, but the highest creditor overseeing the asset liquidation of this villa. "What are you doing? This is my home. Who gave you permission to come in, Mrs. Gu's sharp cry echoed from the living room. Her hair was disheveled, and the once proud high-end custom cheongsam she wore was now crumpled beyond recognition. In her hand, she clutched a gold-inlaid antique vase tightly. "Mrs. Gu, or should I call you, the judgment debtor, Ms. Su?" I stepped up the stairs in my stiletto heels, the dust on the marble floor making a faint rustling sound under my soles. "The court seizure order has taken effect. All movable and immovable property of the Ji family is now part of the liquidation process. This place now belongs to the Shen family. You despicable woman, you harmed my son, and now you want to steal my house." Mrs. Gu brandished a vase, trying to charge forward, but was swiftly restrained by two stern-faced enforcement guards. "Steal, I glanced around at the familiar furniture in the living room. I walked over to a Steinway piano, my fingertips brushing across the keys, producing a dull, discordant sound. This piano was a gift from my father on my 16th birthday. The blue and white porcelain on that antique display shelf was collateral when the Shun family invested in the GU family, and this carpet beneath your feet, my gaze suddenly turned cold. It all belongs to my Shun family. I'm not here to steal today, I'm here to reclaim what is rightfully my inheritance. At that moment, Gu Huai's figure appeared at the top of the stairs. As he was still under the community supervision phase of his criminal sentence, he wore a heavy electronic ankle monitor. He looked at me, his eyes no longer holding the arrogance they once did, now only a hollow, stagnant emptiness. Ruo Ning, must you be so ruthless? Gu Huai leaned against the railing, his voice hoarse and strained. You've already taken the Gu family's business, you've taken our reputation, and now you won't even leave us this last place to shelter from the storm. Gu Huai, when you transferred the Shun family's shares to Lin Yu, letting her squander the money, did you ever think about leaving me a place to shelter from the storm? I took a contract from my bag, the deed for the return of the Shun family's ancestral home. Every brick here is stained with my parents' blood. Do you think you deserve to live here? Let go of me. I want to see President Liu. President Liu must have been bewitched by you. Mother Gu was still struggling, even disregarding her dignity as she knelt on the ground, trying to crawl toward Lu Yuchuan, who had just walked through the door. Lu Yuchuan was wearing a long black trench coat today. He stood at the doorway, the sunlight behind him outlining a cold halo, without even glancing at Mother Gu. He walked straight toward me and naturally wrapped his arm around my waist. Not finished settling the accounts yet, he asked, looking down at me. Though his tone was cold, there was a hint of imperceptible tenderness in it. Almost done, I replied, turning my gaze toward Gu Huai. At that moment, another disheveled figure rushed in through the main gate. It was Lin Yu. She had taken advantage of her medical parole to escape, and now, with tear-streaked cheeks, she stumbled forward and knelt before Lu Yuchuan. Mr. Liu, I beg you. All of this was forced on me by Gu Huai. I love you. No, I had no choice. Lin Yu babbled incoherently, even trying to grab Lu Yuchuan's pant leg. If you just let me go, I still have the passwords to Gu Huai's hidden overseas accounts. I'll give them all to you. Gu Huai suddenly looked up, staring in disbelief at the woman he had once regarded as a pure, innocent flower. Lin Yu, you'd even sell out the last bit of money, should I not sell it and just die with you? Lin Yu turned and roared at Gu Huai, her facial muscles contorted with ferocity. You're already bankrupt, you're useless, only Mr. Liu can save me. I watched this dramatic scene unfold. This man and woman, who had once sworn eternal love and were willing to betray their marriage to be together, now revealed their most primitive and filthy nature amid the ruins of their collapsed interests. Ms. Lin, I spoke, my voice clear and firm. Lin Yu looked at me with hope in her eyes. I picked up a document from the table, a list of debts that had just been settled. The overseas account you mentioned was locked by Lu Corporation an hour ago through international cooperation. Now, not only do you have no bargaining chips left, but you may also face an additional 3 years in prison for maliciously concealing assets. The light in Lin Yu's eyes went out as she collapsed completely to the ground. Carry it out. I waved my hand. The liquidation team began methodically sealing each valuable item. Gu's mother wailed in despair, while Gu Huai was led away by the guards like a wooden puppet. This villa, filled with sin and greed, finally fell into complete silence under the glow of the setting sun. I stood in the empty courtyard, watching the once arrogant Gu family members being driven away like stray dogs. Shun ruining. I turned around and saw Gu Huai stop at the car door. He looked back at me, a line of remorseful tears streaming from the corners of his eyes. If I hadn't left on the day of the wedding, would things have been different between us? Gu Huai. I smiled at him, a smile of relief, filled with strength. There are no IFS in this world, and I have to thank you for leaving that day. Otherwise, I would never have known how wonderful it feels to stand at the peak and take in the view. The car door closed, and everything about the Gu family vanished completely from my sight. Lu Yuchuan walked up behind me, his oversized trench coat enveloping me completely. Finished? He asked. Yes, I've taken back everything from the Shun family. I leaned against his chest, listening to his steady, powerful heartbeat. Mr. Liu, I'm afraid I'll have to spend a lifetime repaying the debt I owe you. A lifetime, Lu Yuchuan chuckled softly, kissing the top of my head. Mrs. Liu, you said it yourself, I don't accept early repayment for this debt. The evening breeze swept away the last trace of decay. Above the ruins, new life was growing wild. The night sky of Jiangcheng was illuminated by an unprecedented drone light show, while the Nebula Art Center, a flagship property of the Lu Group and the city's focal point, was hosting the annual Most Influential Women Awards ceremony and the celebration banquet for the Shun Group's restructuring. I stood in the shadows of the side stage, gazing at the transformed version of myself in the mirror. I wore a gown from the Rebirth collection, personally selected by Lu Yuchuan at a global haute couture show. The deep purple, heavily worked silk flowed like the night sky, with golden thread embroidering a phoenix rising from the flames at the hem. Every inch of the fabric exuded the composure and majesty befitting a leading lady. Ms. Shun, Mr. Liu is already waiting for you on stage, the assistant whispered. Her eyes filled with admiration. I took a deep breath and, in my 10-centimeter crystal heels, walked calmly into the dazzling spotlight below. The venue was filled with business magnates from Jiangcheng and across the nation, mainstream media, and celebrities from all walks of life. In the corner of the first row, a few men and women with dejected expressions and plain attire stood out starkly. They were Gu's mother, who had been granted special permission to attend the ceremony, and Lin Yu, who was out on medical parole. I wanted them to witness firsthand how the dirt they had once schemed to trample now soared high above the clouds. Lu Yuchuan stood at the center of the stage, his sharp black tuxedo making him appear as unattainable as a deity. He held the heavy gold trophy in his hand, his gaze fixed solely on me from start to finish. Tonight, this award not only belongs to the helmsman of the Shun Group but also to the only partner in my life. Lu Yuchuan's voice, deep and magnetic, echoed throughout the venue through the top-tier sound system. He extended his hand toward me, his fingertips dry and firm. I stepped forward and stood side by side with him. Miss Shun Ruining has not only accomplished the rebirth of the Shun Group within just a few months but has also single-handedly reshaped the business landscape of Jiangcheng. Lu Yuchuan handed the trophy to me, then suddenly leaned in slightly and announced word by word into the microphone. In addition, I would like to announce a personal matter. The contractual marriage has expired, but all the equity of the Lu Group was notarized early this morning. I, Lu Yuchuan, am willing to offer my entire fortune as a betrothal gift, and I humbly ask Mrs. Liu to renew our contract for a lifetime. The entire hall fell silent for a second before erupting into thunderous applause and exclamations. Below the stage, Lin Yu clutched the armrest of her seat so tightly that her nails broke without her even noticing. The jealousy and resentment in her eyes ultimately turned into a powerless despair. Meanwhile, Gu's mother covered her face, crying like a stray dog under the glorious lights. They finally realized that Shun Ruining was no longer a pawn whose fate they could control. She was the true master. I took the microphone, looked out at the audience, my gaze clear and resolute. Thank you for your affection, Mr. Liu. I turned to look at Lu Yuchuan, a proud curve lifting the corner of my lips. But compared to becoming Mrs. Liu, I prefer the name Shun Ruining. However, if it's about reaching the peak together as equal partners, I'll sign this contract renewal. Lu Yuchuan wasn't angered by my rejection. Instead, he revealed a smile filled with indulgence, one he had never shown in public before. He cupped the back of my head and, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, in that moment when the camera flashes nearly tore the night apart, gave me an extremely tender yet domineering kiss. This moment was not only the fulfillment of love but also the coronation of power. The climax of the evening banquet was our joint signing of the Global Development Agreement for the South City Port. Once a project that had cost the GU family everything, it had now become a new artery connecting global trade, thanks to the combined efforts of the Shun and Liu families. As the celebration banquet came to an end, I stood side by side with Lu Yuchuan on the rooftop terrace of the art center, looking down. The lights of Jiangcheng sparkled like a galaxy of stars, yet among these countless lights, the name of the GU family was nowhere to be found. Any regrets? Lu Yuchuan wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. This revenge has made you completely bid farewell to the gentle self you once were. Regret? I felt the touch of the two rings overlapping between my fingers, the convergence of power and love. Mr. Lu, once you've seen the sunrise from the mountaintop, you'll never long for the shadows in the valley again. I haven't just bid farewell to meekness, I've also welcomed freedom. I turned around and cupped the face of this cold, proud man. Gu Huai once asked me if things would have been different. If he hadn't left that day, I whispered softly. How did you answer? His eyes darkened slightly. I told him I was grateful for his betrayal. I kissed Lu Yuchuan's thin lips, because if he hadn't left, I would never have discovered that what flows in my bones was never anyone's dependency, but the royal blood of this entire city. Under the starlight, our shadows stretched long on the ground, clinging tightly together. Revenge was merely the prelude to awakening, and my journey had only just begun to cross the mountains.